The top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, Senator Dianne Feinstein, grilling FBI Director James Comey yesterday in a gentle fashion on Capitol Hill. And she joins me now. Senator, thank you very much. I mean, you made the point you had other choices. It wasn't just two choices. You could have said nothing. And also, you could have also revealed that you were already investigating the possible collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian hacking.
Well, of course, that's right. And there wasn't a lot said about the Russian hacking. We've received reports since, but not then. I think the point is, Andrea, this was a classic October surprise. And I don't think he had to do it. He could have started the investigation. He could have started it probably earlier and gotten a look at what was in the computer, and then he would have found there was nothing new. There weren't 30,000 emails. There were 3,000. 12 were classified, and all of them were part of the prior case. So it was a classic October surprise, and I hold Director Comey to a very high standard, and most of the time he meets that standard. But this time, in my view, he did not.
What did you think of him saying that the choice that he faced, neither good, one catastrophic, he felt, left him with a mild case of nausea, the thought that he might be impacting the election?
Well, I thought there would be a better expression for his feelings, but I guess mild case is what it was. There were a lot of rumors that circulated around that there was division within the FBI itself, and that he was getting some very strong commentary, particularly out of New York, to move forward with this. I don't know whether that's true or false, but I do know that 11 days before the campaign, and when I had talked to Secretary Clinton about this, she was convinced it did affect it because they had polls, and certain areas dropped where people were looking at her, thinking about it, maybe not as committed as in other places, and the vote dropped. So it is what it was, but it's also hard because I think when you respect somebody like I did, Director Comey, and do, it's hard when something like this happens and a whole presidential election is changed when there wasn't any big announcement to America, beware, Russians are hacking into the political systems, and they are releasing emails which would damage possibly Secretary Clinton. So he chose one, but he didn't choose the other, and that also concerned me.
He also did say, though, that Russia is now the greatest threat of any nation on earth, given their intention and their capability in terms of their hacking and their interference with our election and what they're doing elsewhere around the world against U.S. interests. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I agree with it, particularly with respect to the hacking. It is diabolical. It can be comprehensive. They are very good at it, and they use it in a very Machiavellian way. Now, having said all of that, this is something that I actually believe that President Trump might be able to deal with President Putin well on, because he's basic. I mean, he's going to say exactly what he thinks, and I think coming from Trump, who many thought would be an ally of Putin, this might be helpful.
The White House has also announced the president's first foreign trip. I was at a briefing over there this morning, and senior officials telling us he is deliberately going to Saudi Arabia first. There will be an Arab summit there convened by the king, and an attempt then following through on Israel and then going on to Rome and the Vatican and a meeting with the Pope to try to rally the world against terrorism, against ISIS, and isolate the Iranians as well. A broad strategy, if you will, to get the Arab leaders also behind Middle East peace and try to have some breakthrough with Israel.
Well, I think that's a good agenda. And I think, you know, the Saudis have been close to the United States. We provide a good deal of money for their munitions. And I think one thing that he might also do is try to ease what is a huge Shia-Sunni schism that exists. And the leaders of that are Saudi Arabia and Iran. I think we've got a foreign minister of Saudi Arabia who has been in this country, Adel al-Jaber, for a long time, speaks very well, is very smart, and might be very helpful in being able to narrow the breach instead of widen it. And I think that that's the big danger in the Middle East, that we end up, whenever this ends, with this huge breach that just continues civil war in even a more vicious way, if that's possible.
And, Senator, I want to ask you one question on domestic issues, because the House, within the next hour, is probably going to do final passage on health care, which does defund Planned Parenthood. There are a lot of objections to the way it handles pre-existing conditions, even though they claim there was a fix. Health groups are concerned. Women's groups are concerned. What is the fate of that, do you think, in the Senate?
Well, I don't believe it'll pass in the Senate. I think senators will want to see the score. Unlike the House, there is no score. We don't know with specificity what the costs are. They put $8 billion in, which I understand is the only change, to try to reconcile leaving out pre-existing conditions. But that won't do it, I am told. And so the number of people that will be disgorged from health insurance is still high, and the cost is enormous. We will still end up with 24 million people losing their health insurance over the next 10 years. That's not a measure that should be passed by the United States Senate.
Senator Dianne Feinstein, thank you so much.